Welcome to Wise Beyond Bitcoin, where you come for education, analysis, and opportunities in blockchain and crypto. My name is Lucas.
And my name is Ryan.
And today we got a quick little update, basically an overview on the risk of stable coins, inherent risk of the centralized version of stable coins, and what blockchain technology what has spurned, emerged, grown from this new technology as an answer to this centralized risk. Of course, this is not financial advice. This is just educational information. These are just our perspectives, and we are learning this along with you. It's a brand new technology. If you have some information to share with us, please drop in the comments and we will research it and share with it as we understand it, and take what we say with a grain of your favorite kind of salt: Himalayan salt, Celtic sea salt, borax, bacon. I don't know. There's so many out there. But yeah, without wasting any time, there's the most popular stable coin in cryptocurrency. When you say stable coin in blockchain or crypto for years, you just automatically think
Tether.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And and there's been talk about the Tether risk for, I guess, since it's been around. There's been talk about the risk of Tether.
Yeah. Questions about its backing, its assets, right? And Bitfinex and the relationship with Tether, and some conflicts of interest there. Yeah, definitely been some controversy. And this came out a month ago, so we're not trying to break any news. We're just using this as a jumping off point to discuss some of the problems with these more centralized stablecoins. In this situation, we're hearing about Tether getting hit with a pretty big fine from the CFTC, the Commodity Futures Trade Commission. And they're basically saying that Tether misrepresented the true nature of their backing, of the assets they held in reserve. And the idea is that Tether holds these dollars in reserves and has a one-to-one backing with the issues. And that, so essentially, it's important to know, well, is this audited? Are they being truthful? And what are the nature of these reserves? And the finding that's being discussed here by the CFTC is that over a 2-year period, from roughly June 16 to February of 19, Tether did not have a fully backed product. That they only had a full backing for roughly 27% of the days between those in that 2-year period. And that even in the period that they were misrepresenting kind of the nature of the assets they held, essentially treating unsecured receivables and other non-fiat assets as dollar reserves, and I guess, and according to these typical accounting practices, they are misrepresenting the nature of those assets. And so then that's being met with a $41 million fine on Bitfinex, which is the kind of like the parent company or of Tether. So yeah, this highlights really the nature of the risks associated with centralized protocols in general, but centralized stablecoins in specific, and kind of the need for sort of a non-dollar alternative or a non-fiat alternative.
And Tether, after Tether, there's been another. Now, I just pulled up Nomics real quick just to show. Look, Tether's number 4 market cap. I mean, that shows how large of a position that it holds in cryptocurrency, and of course, the what it brings, the stability, the connection that it has, that liquidity that it brings, just DeFi, decentralized finance. Sure. So, the Tether risk is really brings a lot of risk to DeFi protocols across many different blockchain platforms, not just Ethereum, but Tether has reached to many different chains. And USDC, look, right here at number 11. So almost both of them in the top 10, and they're both stable coins. So what you're saying here, and of course, the next article,
it goes into the kind of the nature of what's backing USDC. And
pardon me,
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I meant to get to the USDC article that we had right here.
Yeah,
I clicked on the wrong one.
And here you see that they have about 13 billion in cash. They have some CDs, And then they also have some dollar denominated savings vehicles issued by foreign banks. And then there's corporate bonds, US treasuries, and then a few small holding in commercial paper, which are short-term overnight or very short-term loans, products essentially that corporations are able to offer. It's like a bond, but a very short-term bond, a corporate bond essentially, but on a short-term basis. So all of it's dollar. If you look at that, it's all dollar denominated assets in some form or another, all fiat really assets. So we only highlight this not to say that, you know, USDC is undercapitalized or not. That's not the point. It's just say that the kind of assets they hold essentially offer a lot of risks to people who are involved in USDC or Tether. And what are the risks? And I kind of want to, the next article is kind of does a real good job of outlining these risks. And we've talked about this article in other videos, and it's a really good article for understanding the ohm forks and the kind of the DAO reserve currency experiments that are happening. But beyond that, it also is a great introduction into the overarching goal that's going on in these DAOs, and which is essentially to create a reserve of currency and a stable currency that has no peg or any link to any central bank currencies. That's the project here. And so the question is well, what's the reasoning? Like, what are you trying to avoid? You know, what are and then this article kind of, if you scroll down, has a great bullet points kind of breakout of what the reasoning is for why a decentralized or decoupled stablecoin would be ideal or superior to what we have now. And these 4 reasons are: with centralization, you essentially have 4 big risks that come. And with centralization, in the sense that the stablecoins got a direct link to the dollar. And the 4 risks. Well, the first one is regulatory risks, right? So as the government or the SEC or the CFTC or whoever, IRS, fill in the blank, as they look to regulate more and more of the space, the assets that have the closest links to dollars, whether that's, you know, Tether or USDC or any other that has dollar reserves, those are the ones that are going to be the easiest to manage. The reserves are in a centralized location. There's a point of failure, right? And then there'll be a clear legal jurisdictional argument to be made. Well, this is a dollar product, so it should be subject to dollar rules, right? Dollar laws. Now, the next big heading is inflation, and we're going to touch on this a little deeper in a minute. But essentially, the idea is that when you peg your monetary unit, whether it's a stable coin or a national currency, when you peg it to another monetary unit, you are importing whatever inflation or deflationary changes occur on that to that other unit, to that other money, they get imported onto yours. And so it's a one-to-one change. So if you create a currency, you peg it to gold, or you peg it to dollars, or you peg it to euros, then whatever happens to those underlying assets, that's what's going to, the value up or down is going to be imported onto your asset, because it's a peg. It's just a one-to-one. So there's inflation fears, right? So if you're pegging your stable coins to an asset that's steadily losing value and promises to lose more as time goes on, then you've got a big inflation risk. And that also kind of has a link to it's related to the foreign exchange risk we're highlighting here, where the idea is that you're pegged to one asset, but what if other foreign assets appreciate relative to? And so you're being devalued. Your asset will devalue because it's being devalued against these foreign assets. So there's a foreign exchange risk. And then the counterparty centralization risk is just the notion that the Fed or any other centralized entities that are in charge of these protocols, whether that's Circle or Bitfinex in the case of Tether, or Tether in general, that these institutions have their own balance sheets with their own costs, with their own assets and liabilities. And in a world where the Fed's assets, liabilities get mismatched, or maybe Circle's assets and liabilities gets mismatched, then that can have pretty clear consequences for whatever underlying security or monetary unit they're in charge of. So the risks of the centralized party going bankrupt or getting fined or whatever, having their credit rating degraded, that is it's a real risk. And if you're holding the assets that they're in control of or that they issue, then that risk is then also on the value of your asset. You're exposed to the risk of that underlying instability. So decentralization has many different kinds of risks, and so kind of the goal would be, okay, well, how do we create a stable coin that is, independent of that, decoupled from that, or not tethered to these centralized entities, which we've clearly laid out the risks. Now, since we're into economics, and you might have noticed that if you follow us, we like to talk about economics. We don't want to make this a purely economics video, but we have found an article that does get a little deeper into what's going on from an economic point of view when nations peg their currencies to other nations' currencies. And essentially what this is known as the policy trilemma, or the trilemma in general. The open economy trilemma, it's another word for it. And the idea here is that if you have a fixed exchange rate system, which basically just means you're pegged to another currency, it's a fixed peg, whether that's to the dollar with your stable coin, or if it's another national currency, if you're a nation. But regardless, we're talking about a fixed exchange rate system where capital is mobile, and that means that investment capital can flow cross borders. So if there's a return in foreign markets, then the domestic capital is free to flow to that, and if vice versa, foreign capital flows into your economy if there's a return that warrants it. So that would be capital mobility. And so the idea here is consider a fixed exchange rate system with perfect capital mobility. And if the central bank increases the money supply, it's going to put downward pressure on interest rates domestically, and that will trigger a sale of domestic bonds and as people search for higher yields. And then they're going to try to look for, if foreign bonds are offering a higher yield, they'll sell domestic bonds, and the money will flow out into foreign markets. And so what happens is since you have a fixed exchange rate, prices can adjust, and you end up with this excess demand for foreign currency and foreign currency denominated assets. And then you get an excess supply of domestic currency. And since the price is fixed, there's no price adjustment that can even out or cancel out these excess supplies and demands. So they remain, and that can trigger all kinds of instability. And so inevitably what happens is the central bank ends up having to undo its initial policy of expanding the money supply. It contracts the money supply and reduces the amount of excess domestic currency available, and it makes available some foreign currency at that, whatever the official exchange rate is. And this is essentially just walking back the initial process that they started of expanding the money supply. And what does that mean? Well, it means that the ability to determine what your money supply is and to have an interest rate policy, all that goes out the window. And you're importing the monetary policy of whatever nation controls the pegged currency. And so essentially you're giving up monetary sovereignty. And the modern monetary theorists, the MMT people, are all about pointing to this as being a big flaw with the EU, for example. And you got all these national currencies that have been national economies that have ceded their ability to have an independent monetary policy into the EU. And for some have done okay, others have not in that trade-off. And so the MMT crowd says, no, you need to make sure you have monetary sovereignty. That's very important. And they make these policy trilemma arguments. So if you want to follow that, or you want to know more about the economics of pegs in terms of an international monetary theory framework, this article is pretty good at explaining it. But just the general idea, the TLDR, is that when you peg, you give up your ability to control your own policy. And you're now importing the policy of whatever the pegged asset is. And if you're a stable coin and your ethos is all about decentralization and a new ecosystem, new financial world, and decoupling from the old centralized fiat world, pegging to the dollar is like a kind of an indirect sabotage of that whole process, because now you're just linking yourself in this new DeFi world back to the fiat system, which is what we were trying to get away from in the whole time. So that all sets the stage for what I think we want to kind of highlight is the emergence of a new kind of stablecoin, a more decentralized, untethered product that is somewhat more independent from the dollar central bank system.
So let me get this straight. There's two risks that we have with centralized digital currencies that are tied to the dollar. One is the fact that they're centralized stable coins, so that they have point of failures because they have balance sheets. They could be under collateralized. They could not be doing their accounting properly. So they have that point of failure, just like a Federal Reserve does. There's really no difference in that sense. The other is that as a stable coin pegged to the US dollar, which is what Tether and USDC are, what they're really doing is they're just carrying over the same risk that comes over with the US dollar. So if it starts printing trillions of dollars and trillions, or a digital euro or a digital what have you, it creates it makes that digital currency only as strong. And of course, the DeFi built on it is strong as that currency. And so now it seems that blockchain and crypto has now, of course, everything is a necessary evolution and a necessary bridge. And so having these services and these digital assets, these cryptocurrency companies out there to help take accounts of value and ledger them into these new platforms, which is basically all that's ever really been done, right? Is taking value that people have on the books in one system, in one ledger, and then moving it on to these new digital ledgers, right?
Right.
And
sure.
And so what we're saying is that there's an iteration or a new evolution, seeing the shortcomings of this. There's a new evolution of stable coins, decentralized stable coins, reserve currencies for crypto and blockchain that are not centralized, so they are decentralized in their framework, in their nature, and then like DAOs in particular, and B, some are even built on like a basket of digital assets that are interest bearing or collateralized, that are transparent because it's on the blockchain. So there is no risk of anyone cooking the books. And
it's not a dollar. It's not a dollar, a central bank currency that they're, or a product of, they're backed by
the dollar. Right. So it has a value. It has a value of its own.
Yeah. Which is it's referencing back to the DeFi space and not back to some kind of institutional legacy product.
Which is where the service is in the first place. Anyway, It's actually born of a need in the world of decentralized financial. So that's interesting. Okay, and of course we've got Luna, which is just under USDC, which is one of our favorite protocols in crypto, and one of them to talk about. In fact, it's the very next website that we have right here. We will link this below so that people can see how easy it is to become a part of the ecosystem or to learn about it first and foremost.
Lots of development happening on Terra. They're being integrated or have been integrated with the Cosmos IBC ecosystem. And that's, one big step that we're excited about. We've been talking about. There's some airdrops we've alerted you guys to get prepared for that are on Luna. So lots of cool stuff happening. There's even a reserve currency DAO that we're going to do a video on later on Luna Terra as well. So lots of good development and lots of interest and lots of growth on this chain just in the last few months, up to 6 months or so. It's been very impressive. So yeah, I feel like this is my favorite stable coin at the moment. And but then we also want to mention MIM, because there is now an Abracadabra, right? Because now that we're seeing that those two are also working together. There's a new cauldron on Abracadabra specifically for Terra UST. But we don't need to get ahead of ourselves. Let's talk about what Abracadabra is first, right? Let's see all the different chains. That's what I like about this.
There you go.
So what is Abracadabra? This is a multi-chain protocol, as you see: Ethereum, Binance, Avalanche, Arbitrum, Phantom, I believe. And you can come in and lock up or deposit as collateral your LPs. They give a list of them. And for that, you can borrow MIM, Magic Internet Money, which is their native stablecoin. And then you can take that MIM and then go farm it, stake it, do all kinds of cool things with it. And whenever you return the MIM to the cauldron, which is the pool, you get your LPs back. So it's a cool way to make to kind of like take advantage of the value locked up in LP tokens. Typically something you can't take advantage of. It earns an interest, but you're not able to, if you sell it, you've given away your position. Whereas in this case, you can just take a loan on it, and then you can kind of access some of that locked in value and do it and take a loan off your own collateral, getting, borrowing from yourself, as it were. And so, yeah, very cool project. The cauldron they have for UST coming up allows you to take UST Terra, not an LP token, but just LP. It's just the token itself, and use that to borrow against and get MIM. So that's a cool thing they're doing. So definitely check out Abracadabra.
Yeah, there's interesting reason you mentioned this, and we do go into a little bit detail in our previous video that we made on DAO stablecoins. But you notice here that they use LPs, liquidity tokens for interest-bearing assets or digital assets that are accruing fees and generating a return. And so you've got this collateral, this over collateralization, or this growing collateral from the birth of the MIM. In order to mint MIM, you have to deposit an LP token that is out there generating, fees for the exchange.
And those LP tokens take the place of like a treasury bond or a CD for like in terms of the assets that back the centralized stablecoins like Tether, USDC, right? So this is in a form of a bond essentially, but in the DeFi space with purely DeFi assets.
What's neat is that when you mentioned Luna Terra bringing UST on, while they aren't an LP token, because they're backed by Luna, and you look at Anchor Protocol and what's just built directly into the Luna Terra ecosystem, it does kind of have this interest-bearing asset built into it. You have that with the UST transitioning over to Luna, and also with the protocols that they have over there. So that's, and of course, like we've said, Luna Terra, a blockchain of its own built on the Cosmos Tendermint, that bit in that IBC framework. We are so excited to do more. If you like this kind of content and want to know more about these blockchains, then feel free to hit the notification bell and all that good stuff, and a thumbs up, because we are excited.
Not financial advice.
No,
get that out there, right?
Not at all.
Edutainment.
This is not financial advice. This is just entertainment and educational information. We're just, learning this as we go, and it's happening so fast, and there's so much going on. We really rely upon all the resources around our friends and the others in the community. It's a beautiful community in and of itself. Really, all of us who've been involved and who are learning. It's a new technology. It's a new language, and so it's fun, and it's innovative. And it's high risk. And so do your own research, especially DYOR when you're going to BYOB, be your own bank.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So this is awesome information. This is what I like to see, and that's what's exciting about letting this space just kind of be free and innovative, is that you have products, you have these developments that you never could have planned 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, but there are people somewhere working on the space right now on a project that, oh my gosh, that's perfect for the blockchain. I never could have seen it coming, but then here it is. And this is beautiful for 2 reasons. We're looking at stable coins now, a reserve currency, because it's not, we talk about reserve currency stable coins. We're talking about people depending upon the value, what they return for their labor, what they save for their children. I mean, we're talking about bringing stability to money as an institution and finding a way not to have those risks inherent in centralized systems that come up all the time. So that's the whole purpose of this technology of cryptocurrency and blockchain, to create something that is equitable, ethical, and transparent, and not tethered, like you said, to the fragilities or the risks associated with the previous institutions. Right.
Yeah, the legacy systems.
Right. So it's like this. You have wheels and an axle on a carriage pulled by horses, right? But you wouldn't use those same wheels and axles on a car, right? Because it just wouldn't be able to take the load and the RPMs and all that. So you have heavier duty axles and different wheels made. And that's like this new system versus the legacy institution. You have to be able to update the needs that can be done on this. I don't want to use those old axles.
The same thinking that worked for that system in that context isn't going to just carry over one-to-one and work in this new one. So you have to be, and we need to have a more open-ended understanding of, okay, this is evolving, things are changing, and maybe we have to have it throughout the rule book, right, with what worked before, and just be more open to learning, being humble and experimental. So, but yeah, all in all, very good to see stablecoins moving in a more decentralized direction, and we'll have more to say on this, I know, as time goes.
Yes, we will have more to say on the DAO reserve currency stablecoin era very soon. We'll keep you updated on the developments, because, as you know, there's a whole family birthed across different blockchains in this ecosystem, and they're connecting to Luna Terra. And if you want to know more about Luna Terra, Cosmos, and IBC, that's one of our favorites. There's so many great protocols and stuff to stay on top of. So, like I said, if you want to support us, there are ways below. If you already know how to catch fish and you dig what we're saying and it's helping you out, feel free to share a fillet. But if not, we love the thumbs up and the sharing is caring to those who you think might benefit from this information, because that's what knowledge is power. So we also appreciate the comments and dropping us those protocols and what's happening out there, to stay on top of everything, because there's so much going on all over the place. NFTs, stable coins, the metaverse, privacy. Oh my gosh, it's huge. It's happening so fast. So thank you for that love and support. I think do we pretty much hit all the points on this one?
Yeah, that's it, man.
All right. Well, until the next time,
catch you guys.
Have a beautiful day, and namaste.
Adios.